Hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Strategy Game Podcast. I'm your host, Lauren Shippey, and today we're continuing our Seen, Known, and Heard series, and we're talking about the fact that each one of us has been given a very individual brain with individual thoughts, and how we need to allow ourselves to make the space to process those things. And really embrace them, because I think that we have all been given a specific, unique personality, different gifts or things that we are good at. We've all been through unique experiences that are not like any other, right? And I think when we don't recognize the power that those things have, we almost gyp ourselves out of the opportunity to be able to serve others and impact the world in our own unique way. So, I think it's just really taking into account almost this process of seeing and hearing and knowing ourselves in order to be able to just serve the people around us and the world and even ourselves in our own unique way. Because no one will do it exactly like we will. And this goes back to strategy, even when I'm working with different leaders and companies and organizations, no one else is going to do it exactly like they would. So really drawing out their own unique abilities, their unique personality, whether that's a brand or a thought leader, make it really imperative and make an imperative part of their strategy. Because if they never do that, they're going to blend in with everybody else. They're not going to stand out, and they won't really have an impact. So we get to do that with ourselves as well. And we talk about this in my ecourse, the Strategy Masterclass. And when I was writing this years ago, I thought about these four things, and I'm looking at them now on the screen as I'm recording this, and I still feel the same way, that these four things really make up who we are. And so the first, I'm going to go through them. The first is personality and gifts. And so this means really, how does your personality impact how you view the world and how you operate? So if you think about yourself, the question to ask here is, who have you always been? And chances are that you can look back at old photos of yourself, and when you look in your own eyes, I wonder what you see. And there should be a trend there, right? There should be just a pattern, a personality. Maybe your parents growing up used to say, oh, you always did this, or you always were like that, or there's always, and now that can be like, there can be pros and cons to that, right? But there's something, and there's a positive of who you've always been that you want to carry through to your future, and represents who you're becoming even now, and who you're going to be in the future, and the work that you're going to do. Okay, so for myself, I'll give a personal example. My parents always said that I asked why. I always asked why about everything, to the point sometimes of their exhaustion, my poor parents. But now I look at that and I think that makes sense. That's who I've always been. I've always been someone who asks why and asks questions and wants to understand the why and go to a deeper level. That's who I am. I don't operate as much on the surface. I always want to uncover more, whether that's about people or business models. And now it makes sense that I use that when developing strategies or when working with people and leaders in a leadership capacity. So that's the question I would encourage you to ask. Who have you always been? So personality and gifts are the first area that make up really who we are. The second is experiences. So what triumphs and hardships have you been through in your life by phase, and how has each one shaped you? So I think that we've all been through experiences, and there are some moments we can think back to as you think back throughout your life. and you think maybe in stages like 0 to 5, 5 to 10, and then you think about your teenage years and then maybe beyond that, what are the different themes that emerge? What are the experiences that come up for you, both good and bad? Because those things, whether we want them to or not, have shaped us and have impacted us. And the more we can recognize how they've shaped us, the more that we will be able to move through our lives and use the lessons that we've learned, right, to form and craft our message and our brand voice and the way we operate with our teams, right? So it's really just, again, we talk a lot about this, is calling the subconscious to the conscious mind, right? Those things that we maybe have always known, but not called out or not recognized. So I would encourage you to go ahead and do that. The third thing that we talk about is lies versus truth. So what we believe about ourselves. So we have thoughts that come into our minds, right? And if we just let those thoughts flow, it won't always be good for us, right? That can be a detriment because some of those thoughts are not actual truth. Some of those thoughts are lies that we're believing about ourselves. And if we don't catch them, if we don't capture the thoughts, then we won't be able to take them captive, right? We won't be able to rein them in, like take a big lasso and rein them in and replace them with truth or true thoughts about who we really are, okay? And focus on that truth. So it's a really important process to go through, and you could start at any time. It's pretty simple. It's just really a matter of recognizing that, hey, there are false beliefs that come into my mind every day, and I'm going to pay attention to them today. And maybe it helps you to write them down as they're coming into your mind, or maybe it just helps you on the go to catch them and say, nope, I'm going to park that one over here until I can work through it and figure out where it came from, right? And so those lies that we've been through are most likely connected to the experiences that we have had on the hardship side. So you see how this is all connected, because when we work through or understand, lay out those triumphs and hardships, then we can connect them back to what kind of false beliefs am I having, right? And what do I need to learn to take captive and replace with truth? And then the fourth category about what makes us who we are the people, the news feeds, and the inputs that we have. And this is really a large part of our environment today. And we would be remiss if we don't include this, because we are the culmination of the people that we spend a lot of time with, right? What is happening in those relationships? What are we gaining? What are we giving up? Important to look at those things with the people around us that we spend the most time with, but also with the things that we are putting into our minds every day. So what are we reading? What are we listening to? What are we taking in via social media, and how is it impacting us individually? And for one person, it might not impact them in a negative way, but for you, it might right now. So, I've got some friends that really struggle with just seeing things and what certain people are sharing on social media. And that is valid for them. It is really true for them. And it's something that they are struggling with currently, right? And so if you're going through a season where that is hard, then you might need to say, hey, I'm going to take a hiatus. I'm going to fast, or I'm going to take a break from social media because it's impacting me in a negative way. And so each of us is individual. No one else would do things like you would. And you've got to really hone in on what that looks like for you. What does your environment look like right now? What shifts do you need to make? And this is always changing. So even evaluating this, taking this and saying, hey, once a quarter, I'm going to look at these things and see, how am I doing here? What do I need to shift around and pay attention to? Any new experiences that have emerged for me, that's a triumph that really has shaped me celebrating something, or a hardship. Hey, this was really hard. This was a spirit crushing moment for me. and I've got to process through this, So really taking an account of these things helps us just be on the journey well and process it as it comes and capture any thoughts that we need to and replace them. And I love this quote from the book, The Question. It's so good, by Lee Bortons. It says, sometimes the journey of discovery is more important and valuable than the journey itself. And so my charge to you is to just be on the journey. So be on the journey, put yourself on the map in terms of seeing and hearing and knowing yourself so that you can just understand more about yourself. And some of this work is hard. I get it. And some of it is draining. And sometimes we do not have the energy. But the truth often is that the draining of energy often comes from maybe experiences or inputs that we haven't yet processed. So, the goal is to get ourselves to a space where we have enough just energy to process through these things so that we can ultimately have more energy and live life in what I call just the overflow, where we feel full ourselves, and then that spills over onto others in a good way. So thanks so much for listening in. As always, we will put more info or any links in the show notes, and we will talk to you soon.